സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ ഇന്ന് ചർച്ച ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ ഡിമാൻഡുമായിട്ട് റിലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന കോൺസെപ്റ്റ് ആണ്. ആൻഡ് ആസ് യു ഓൾ നോ, ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കോൺസെപ്റ്റ് ആണ്. ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എന്താ, ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് നത്തിങ് ബട്ട് എബിലിറ്റി പ്ലസ് വില്ലിംഗ്നെസ് ടു പർച്ചേസ് കമോഡിറ്റി ആണ്. നമുക്കൊരു കമോഡിറ്റി വാങ്ങാനായിട്ടുള്ള എബിലിറ്റിയും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ അത് വാങ്ങാനായിട്ടുള്ള കപ്പാസിറ്റിനെയുമാണ് നമ്മൾ ബേസിക്കലി എന്തായിട്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്, ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്നുള്ളത് കൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് വെറുതെ ഒരു കമോഡിറ്റി പർച്ചേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് മാത്രം എന്തില്ല, കാര്യമില്ല. നമ്മളുടെ ഏറ്റവും ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ആ ഒരു പെർട്ടിക്കുലർ സോർട്ട് ഓഫ് കമോഡിറ്റി നമുക്ക് പർച്ചേസ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടുള്ള എന്തും കൂടി ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കണം, എബിലിറ്റിയും കൂടെ ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കണം അല്ലെ. എങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ നമുക്ക് എന്ത് പറയാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ, അവിടെ ഡിമാൻഡ് ഉണ്ട് ഒരു പെർട്ടിക്കുലർ കമോഡിറ്റിക്ക് എന്ന് നമുക്ക് പറയാനായിട്ട് സാധിക്കുള്ളൂ. സോ ഈ ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ് അല്ലെ, ഒരുപാട് തരത്തിലുള്ള ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ് ജനറലി എന്ത് ചെയ്യാറുണ്ട്, നമ്മളുടെ ഡിമാൻഡിനെ ഗവേൺ ചെയ്യാറുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ അതിൽ വരുന്ന ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ്, ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് മറ്റൊന്നുമല്ല, അതായത് നമ്മുടെ ഇൻകം വരുന്നുണ്ട്, അതായത് നമ്മുടെ വരുമാനം വരുന്നുണ്ട്, അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ഒരു കമോഡിറ്റിയുടെ പ്രൈസ് വരുന്നുണ്ട്, ഒരു കമോഡിറ്റിയോട് നമുക്ക് ഇഷ്ടം അല്ലെ, ടേസ്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് പ്രിഫറൻസ് വരുന്നുണ്ട്, അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ട്രെൻഡ്, നമ്മളൊരു കമോഡിറ്റി വാങ്ങുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ ട്രെൻഡ് നോക്കാറുണ്ട്, അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെന്റ്, ഇതെല്ലാം എന്താണ് മക്കളെ, ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കൺസേൺ ആണ് അല്ലെ. ഒരു കമോഡിറ്റി നമ്മൾ വാങ്ങണോ വാങ്ങണ്ടേ എന്നുള്ള കാര്യത്തിലേക്ക് നമ്മളെ ഗവേൺ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യമാണ് ഈ ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഡിമാൻഡിനെ നമുക്ക് പലതായിട്ട് ക്ലാസിഫൈ ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് പറ്റും. ഒന്ന് നമ്മളുടെ ഡയറക്റ്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ്, രണ്ടാമത്തത് നമ്മളുടെ ഡിറൈവ്ഡ് ഡിമാൻഡ്, അടുത്തത് വരുന്നത് ജോയിന്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ്, അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ഇൻഡിവിജ്വൽ ഡിമാൻഡ്. ഇങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഡിമാൻഡിനെ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, ക്ലാസിഫൈ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഡയറക്റ്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എന്താ, ഡിമാൻഡ് ഫോർ എ പെർട്ടിക്കുലർ കമോഡിറ്റി. സേ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ എനിക്ക് ചപ്പാത്തി വേണം, എനിക്ക് ബിരിയാണി വേണം. സോ അങ്ങനെ നമ്മൾ പറയുവാണെങ്കിൽ അതിനെയാണ് ഡയറക്റ്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. What is derived demand? Derived demand എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ demand for a particular commodity leads on for the demand for another commodity. Say for example, ഇപ്പം ഇങ്ക് പെന്നിന്റെ ഡിമാൻഡ് കൂടിയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഒബ്വിയസ്ലി എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കും, ഇങ്കിന്റെ ഡിമാൻഡും വർദ്ധിക്കാനായിട്ടുള്ള സാധ്യതയുണ്ട് അല്ലെ, ബിക്കോസ് ബോത്ത് ഓഫ് ദം ആർ അസോസിയേറ്റഡ് വിത്ത് ഈച്ച് അതർ. സോ ഇങ്ങനെ ഒന്നിന്റെ ഡിമാൻഡ് കൂടുന്നത് മറ്റൊന്നിന്റെ ഡിമാൻഡിന് കാരണമാകുന്നുവെങ്കിൽ അവയെ നമ്മൾ ഡിറൈവ്ഡ് ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. അടുത്തത് ജോയിന്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ്. സോ വാട്ട് ഇസ് ജോയിന്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ്? സി, നമ്മൾ ഒരിക്കലും റൈറ്റ് ഷൂ മാത്രം ഇട്ടിട്ട് നടക്കില്ല അല്ലെ. റൈറ്റ് ഷൂവും ലെഫ്റ്റ് ഷൂവും രണ്ടും കൂടെ ഒരുമിച്ചിട്ടിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ നടക്കുക. അപ്പൊ അവിടെ എന്താ, രണ്ടും നമുക്ക് കമ്പൈൻഡ് ആയിട്ട് വേണ്ടതാണ് അല്ലെ. അങ്ങനെ കമ്പൈൻഡ് ആയിട്ട് ആവശ്യമുള്ളതാണെങ്കിൽ അവയെ നമ്മൾ ജോയിന്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്നുള്ളതാണ് വിളിക്കുന്നത്. നെക്സ്റ്റ് കംസ് ഇൻഡിവിജ്വൽ ഡിമാൻഡ്. Individual demand എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ that is the demand originated by a particular individual. ഒരു particular individual originate ചെയ്യുന്ന ഡിമാൻഡിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ എന്തായി വിളിക്കുന്നത്, ഇൻഡിവിജ്വൽ ഡിമാൻഡ് എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്നത്. Now we are moving on to law of demand. So what is law of demand? നമുക്കറിയാം, ഒരു സാധനത്തിന്റെ വില വർദ്ധിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ജനറലി എന്ത് ചെയ്യില്ല, ആ സാധനം പർച്ചേസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് കുറയ്ക്കും അല്ലെ. വിച്ച് മീൻസ് പ്രൈസും ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റി ഡിമാൻഡും തമ്മിൽ എന്ത് ബന്ധാ, ഒരു ഇൻവേഴ്സ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ബന്ധാ വരുന്നത്. ഒരു സാധനത്തിന്റെ വില വർദ്ധിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരിക്കലും ആ സാധനം വാങ്ങില്ല, ആ സാധനത്തിന് പകരം മറ്റു കമോഡിറ്റി ആയിരിക്കും വാങ്ങുന്നത് അല്ലെ. സോ പ്രൈസും ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റി ഡിമാൻഡും തമ്മിലുള്ള ഒരു ഇൻവേഴ്സ് അസോസിയേഷൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇൻവേഴ്സ് റിലേഷൻഷിപ്പിനെയാണ് ലോ ഓഫ് ഡിമാൻഡ് കൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. സേ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഇവിടെ പ്രൈസ് ഉണ്ട്, ഇവിടെ ഡിമാൻഡ് ഉണ്ടെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കാം. സോ ഹിയർ യു ഹാവ് 5 4 3 2 1. 5 രൂപയ്ക്ക് ഞാൻ 10 കമോഡിറ്റി മേടിച്ചു. വില കുറഞ്ഞപ്പോ ഒബ്വിയസ്ലി നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും മക്കളെ, കൂടുതലായിട്ട് വാങ്ങിക്കും അല്ലെ. സോ ഹിയർ വെൻ ദ പ്രൈസ് ഓഫ് ദ കമോഡിറ്റി വാസ് 5, we were able to purchase 10 units of a commodity. Now what happened? ഇവിടെ when the price of the commodity declined to 4, we were able to purchase 20 units of a commodity. Now again, when the price of the commodity declined to 3, we were able to purchase more units of a commodity. Again, when it declined to 2, we were able to purchase 40 units of a commodity. Again, which declined to 1, we were able to purchase 50 units of a commodity. So, price and demand relationship here is tabulated in the form of a table. Okay. So, when the price and demand relationship is tabulated in the form of a table, we call it as demand schedule. So, when the relationship between price as well as quantity demanded of a commodity is represented in the form of a table, we call it as demand schedule. Now, graphically, we can just represent it in the form of a pictorial representation. So here you have price, this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis. So on the y-axis, you represent price and on the x-axis, you represent quantity. Okay, so here you have on the quantity demanded 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. Here you have price, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now what happened is, when the price of the commodity was 5, you were able to purchase 10 units of a commodity. Again when it is 4, 20 units. Again when it is 3, 30, then 20, then 40 and 1, 50. Now just join all these points together. So you will be getting demand line. Okay, see, we will call it demand line, but essence they call it demand curve. Okay, demand line എന്നാണ് ശരിക്കും വിളിക്കേണ്ടത്. But what happens is it is generally notated as demand curve. So demand curve shows what? Demand curve shows an inverse relationship between quantity demanded of a commodity and price. Now, there are exceptions to law of demand. See, when we move on to law of demand, multiple level of exceptions are there. See, the very first one is the case of Veblen good. Veblen good in the പറയുന്നത്, it was put forward by Thornstein Veblen in the 19th century. See, luxurious good, prestige good. Say for example, we are in diamond, now gold, all those things have become very luxurious items, right? So when the price of such commodity increases, normally what happens, we will be interested to purchase much more unit of that particular commodity. So such sort of commodity, when the price of a commodity increases, we purchase more unit of that particular commodity. Such commodities are generally regarded as Veblen good. The second one is Giffen good. See, what is Giffen good? Giffen good means it is actually put forward by Robert Giffen during 19th century. See, it is the case with respect to USA. In USA, people used to consume what? Bread as well as meat. So the system over there all of a sudden increased the price of bread. So what happened is, they were not able to purchase bread. Rather, they purchased what? They purchased, yes, meat. But what happened? All of a sudden in the long run, when we consume more amount of meat, that would create serious levels of problems. So what happened is, people, they just cut the expenditure for purchasing meat, and rather they did what? They devoted the amount for the purchase of what? Purchase of bread. So when the price of the commodity increased, what happened? They consumed more quantity of bread rather than wheat. So Veblen good, Giffen good, all those things are exceptions. Now we are moving on to market demand curve. So what is market demand curve? Market demand curve means the sum total of all individual demand curve. Say for example, I need biryani. So how many biryani? One biryani. So suppose I am asking you, how many of you need biryani? So you are telling me that 30 biryanis is. Okay, so at that particular moment, what is the market demand? Market demand is the sum total of all individual demand, which means here it is 30 biryanis. So what is market demand? Market demand means it is the sum total of individual demand. So individual demands clubbed together, it is called as what? Market demand curve. Now we are moving on to two particular concepts. The very first one is the changes in demand. We can just call it, or we can just classify it into movement of demand as well as shift in demand. See, when you move on to movement in demand, you can just classify it into two. The very first one is extension in demand, and the next one is the contraction in demand. See, first let's move on to the movement of demand. When the price of a commodity was 10, here on the axis you have price, here you have quantity. You should never write Q, P, etc. You should write price, you should write quantity, just like that. Okay, just make it sure. So when the price of the commodity was 10, we were able to purchase 4 units of a commodity. Now the price of the commodity declined and the price of the commodity declined to 8. So you were able to purchase 6 units of a commodity. Now just join these lines together. Okay, you got a demand curve. See, this is point A and this is point B. So movement from A to B, movement from A to B, it represents extension in demand, which means the demand is increased, right? Okay, when the price declined, demand increased. So that is what is called as extension or expansion of demand. Now again, what happened is here when the price of the commodity increased to 12, now you were able to purchase only 2 units of a commodity. Why? Because price increased, so I'm not able to purchase much more quantity of commodity. Okay, so what happens here is there is a shrinkage or there is a reduction in the purchasing capacity. So you won't be able to purchase much more units of a commodity. So what happens over here? What happens here is there is a reduction in demand. See, listen, initially this much was our demand. Now there is a reduction and we will purchase only this much quantity. So movement from, this is point A, this is point C. So movement from A to C is known as contraction in demand. So all those things generally takes place due to what? Generally takes place due to price variations. Now, shift in demand. Shift in demand can be divided into two, which includes increase in demand as well as decrease in demand. Okay, see, this is the most important part. Movement of the demand means it generally takes place due to change in price. But when we move on to shift in demand, it generally takes place due to what? It generally takes place due to factors other than price. Say for example, income, change in taste and preferences, all those things. So here shift is represented as like this. Here you have quantity, you have price over here. This is your demand curve. Now what happened is, suppose the taste and preference of you changed. Okay, so that you will be able to purchase more units of a commodity, right? Yes, so the demand curve shift, friends, oh, frontward, okay, or rightward. So here demand increased due to increase in taste, preferences, all those things. So here shift is actually, shift to right is called as increase in demand. Shift to right is regarded as increase in demand. Now on the other hand, what happened is, suppose there is a deceleration or suppose there is a decrease in or your preference taste, all those things fluctuates, right? So here what happened is there is a fluctuation in your demand for a good, so it declined. Okay, so this is what is called decrease in demand or leftward shift. So there is rightward shift. On the same hand, there is leftward shift also. So movement of demand takes place due to changes in price, and shift in demand means what? Increase or decrease due to factors other than price. Now, when we move on to its computation, in order to compute demand, we call it elasticity of demand. So what is elasticity of demand? Elasticity of demand means when the price of a certain commodity fluctuates, what happens to quantity demand? And that's an important thing to be discussed, right? Okay, that is what is explained over here. So here, elasticity of demand can be computed using three forms. The very first one is the percentage method. You are having three methods. Very first one is the percentage method. Then you have the expenditure method, and then you have geometric method. Okay, there are basically three methods. So when you move on to percentage method, the formula is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So this is actually your formula. What is the formula? Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now when we move on to expenditure method, the formula is P into Q. P stands for price and Q for quantity. So here in under percentage method, when the question is not given in the form of percentage, there is an alternative formula that is minus P, that is minus delta Q by delta P into P by Q. P means what? P means initial price. You will be given a price, that is P, initial price. Q means what? Q means initial quantity. What is Q? Q means initial quantity. Now, P1 means what? New price. Okay, new price. That is P1. Q1 means what? New quantity. That is Q1. Now, what is delta P? Delta P is P1 minus P. What is delta Q? Delta Q is Q1 minus Q. So, this is the form. Now, you have geometric method. So, before you move on to geometric method, you should know about the different elasticities of demand. See, demand can be classified into, or the elasticity of demand. What is price elasticity? Price elasticity means same as elasticity of demand. When the price of a commodity changes, what happens to quantity demanded? That is the basic notion. So here you have various sorts of elasticities. You have perfectly elastic demand. You have perfectly inelastic demand. You have unitary elasticity of demand. You have more elastic, or rather you can call them as relatively elastic also. And here you have less elastic. So basically you are having 5 types of elasticities. So what is perfectly elastic demand? See, these all things are based on commodities. Okay, there are different sorts of commodities, and on the basis of this we do classify it. So on the x-axis you have Q, and on the y-axis you have price. Now, suppose, see, elasticity of demand means we are just talking about it from the perspective of when there is price change, what happens to demand. We are just dealing with that particular concept. So now what happened is, here the price of the commodity is constant. There is no change in price, but quantity demanded increases. You can purchase 10 units of a commodity, 20 units of a commodity, 30 units, there is no limit, right? So here elasticity of demand is infinite. Now, perfectly inelastic, which means quantity always remains constant. See, say for example, think about the condition of medicine. Initially, we were purchasing this much at 10 rupees. We were purchasing 2 units of a commodity. Now, when the price of medicine increases, we won't reduce its consumption because medicine is important, right? So, we won't reduce its consumption. So, that's an important thing. Now, again, when the price of medicine decline, we won't sacrifice rice for medicine, right? We won't do that. So, what happens is, again, the consumption pattern remains constant. So here the elasticity, what happens to demand? There is no fluctuation in demand. So elasticity of demand is 0. Now you are moving on to unitary elastic. What is unitary elastic? On the x-axis you have quantity, on the y-axis you have price. See, suppose 10 rupees you are purchasing 2 units of a commodity. Now what happens is, the price reduced to 8, you were able to purchase 4 units of a commodity. See here also 2 units. Here you were able to purchase 2 more commodity. So 2 and 2. So same change, right? So when you join this point, you can see that there is same change. So elasticity of demand is 1. Now moving on to more elastic. On the x-axis you have quantity, on the y-axis you have price. So here price of a commodity is 10, you are able to purchase 2 units of a commodity. Now when the price dropped to 8, you are able to purchase 6 units of a commodity. See, here only 2 rupees has decreased. Okay, now what happened? You were able to purchase 4 more units. So you were able to purchase more quantity of a commodity, right? So here the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So with a minor change in price, you were able to purchase more units of a commodity. So it means that here the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Now moving on to less elastic. When you move on to less elastic, you were able to purchase initially at 10 rupees 2 units of a commodity. Now when the price declined to 8 units of a commodity, you just bought 3 units of a commodity. Think, here price decreased by 2, but here you consumed additional quantities 1 alone. So here the elasticity of demand is less than 1. So these are the versions through which, based on commodity, you can classify. So geometric method is actually pictorial representation of these all elasticities in a demand curve. So on the midpoint, you have elasticity of demand is equal to 1. Here you have greater than 1. Here you have infinity. Here you have less than 1. And here you have 0. So these are the basic tendency. Now, similar to that of price elasticity of demand, you have cross elasticity of demand and income elasticity of demand. Same formula as that of price elasticity. Price elasticity means what? When there is change in price, how the consumption pattern takes place. Simultaneously, what will be income elasticity of demand? Income elasticity of demand means when there is change in income, what happens to demand? Whether demand increases, demand falls, all those things. See, think about the situation of inferior good. What is inferior good? We call it tapioca. Okay, suppose my income was 100 rupees. I was able to, or I was purchasing tapioca. But my income now increased to 1 lakh, 2 lakh, even crores. So I am able to purchase what? More units. And since I am with enough income, I won't prefer the tapioca. I would say that, oh, who wants this tapioca? I don't want this tapioca. I'll go for manti, I'll go for biryani, all those things. Okay. So that is the case of inferior good. Now think about cross elasticity. See, you have tea over here, you have coffee over here. Suppose the cost of tea is 5 rupees and that of coffee is 6. Taste, preferences, everything, you don't consider all those things. But that particular point, you need to drink something. That's the only matter. So at that particular moment, you will prefer tea. Why? Because tea's price is very low. So obviously the demand for coffee will decline. Why? Because we are preferring much amount of tea. We don't need coffee. Okay. So here what happens is the price of tea influenced the demand for coffee. Price for tea influenced the demand for coffee. And that is what is called cross elasticity of demand, which means the price of a particular commodity influences the demand for another sort of commodity. That is what is called cross elasticity of demand. So this is all about demand. Now let's move on to law of supply. See, law of supply means there is a positive relationship between what? Quantity supplied and the price of a commodity. See, we as entrepreneur, when we know that there are certain people who will purchase our commodity, whatever be the price be. Okay. So at that moment, what happens is, obviously we will be ready to provide more units of commodity, so supply will increase, and on the same hand price will also increase because people are there to consume such things. So we can charge n number of commodities, we can just distribute n number of commodity, we can charge n price. There is no limit for the price fixation, right? So when the quantity supplied and price of a commodity shows a positive relationship, that is actually symbolized, or that is actually represented as law of supply. Just like demand schedule, law of supply actually represents a tabular presentation between what and what, price and quantity supplied. Say for example, we can plot it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quantity supplied as 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. Now we are just plotting it in the form of a what? A diagram. On the x-axis you have quantity supplied, on the y-axis you have price. Okay, see, when you are drawing supply, make sure that on the x-axis you write quantity supplied. When you are drawing demand, make sure that you are on the x-axis you are marking quantity demanded. Now when you plot the relation, you will get upward sloping line. See, why? Because price and quantity supplied shows a positive relationship. On the other hand, quantity demanded and price shows an inverse relation. Extension, contraction, it also appears in this particular case. So this is actually called supply schedule. Okay, so the other one was called demand schedule. When there is a relationship between price and quantity demanded, we call it as demand schedule. On the other hand, when there is a relationship between price and supply, we call it as supply schedule. So here also the same thing. When the price of a commodity, this is point A, When the price of the commodity increases, we will purchase more quantity of a commodity. So this is actually called extension of supply. Okay, extension of supply. Now again what happened is price of a commodity declined. So supply also declined. When the price of a commodity declined, the entrepreneur won't be ready to supply that particular commodity because price declined, right? So now movement from A to C is called a contraction of supply. Movement from A to C is called contraction of supply. This is due to what? This is due to fluctuation in price. Okay, now we are moving on to shift in supply. The same thing, nothing else. Okay, here you have supply, but the most important thing which you need to remember is that, see, when it is in the case of demand, increase in demand will be towards right. But here, what you have to, that is upward movement. In the case of supply, increases towards this. Okay, this movement is actually represented as increase in supply, and backward movement represented decrease in supply. See, this is shift. Shift takes place due to factors other than price. Okay, price is not the most important factor which regards or which affects the shift in supply. Now, moving on to elasticity of supply. Same formula, nothing else. Percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. This is the formula. There is no change. Okay. So that's a formula which normally rests upon this particular concept. Now, market equilibrium. Market equilibrium generally, this is quantity demanded and quantity supplied, and this is price. Now you have demand curve and this is your supply curve. Now what happened is demand all of a sudden increased. That means suppose there is change in taste and preference. We will be purchasing more units of a commodity because our taste, preference, everything changed, right? So we will automatically prefer more units of a commodity. So what happens is our demand increased. Now, when our demand increased and we were not able to match our demand, automatically it would create problem. See, E is the point of equilibrium. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium means point of rest. Okay, we won't be having a tendency to move from that particular point. See, suppose 10 units of commodity are produced in our economy, 10 people are there to consume. So, demand is 10 and supply is 10. So, again, there is an equilibrium factor over there. Now what happened is, suppose my demand increased or demand in the market increased from 10 to 20. So obviously what happened? There is no enough commodity. So that would create problem. We need to adjust. So in order to adjust that, what will we do? We will reduce or we will increase the price. So when the price initially was 10 and now it is 20. So when we increase the price of the commodity, normally consumers will think what, we won't be able to, we are not ready to purchase this particular commodity. That will be their motto, right? So obviously what happens, the demand will come back to this particular point. This is a short run situation. Say for example, a short span of time, 6 months, 7 months, all those things. Now, in the long run means adjustment time is there. We will be able to make some sorts of adjustments, right? So, since time is there for us, we will do what? We will increase our supply. So, what will happen? Our supply process will take place in this particular manner. Somewhat at rupees 50, we will be able to provide them with much more units of commodity. So this is actually a long run situation. This won't happen all of a sudden. It takes time to represent all those things. Now, there are two main concepts, that is producer surplus as well as a consumer surplus. So what is producer surplus? See, we as entrepreneur, I have decided to produce a particular commodity, and say for example, the price of a commodity, to produce that particular commodity, I thought that 100 rupees will be incurred. But actually, it cost me only 80 rupees. I thought that 100 rupees will be by expenditure, but actually my expenditure was only 80. So it's an added advantage for me, right? It is an advantage for me, and I have done what I have done, or I have saved 20 rupees. So that is produce a surplus. That is produce a surplus. Now suppose I am going to purchase a particular commodity, and at that time I thought that it would cost 100 rupees, but only 80 rupees. So 20 rupees I saved, right? So that is what is called consumer surplus. So producer surplus shows what a producer, or it's a difference between what a producer is willing to sell, or what a producer is willing to incur, and what he actually incurs. Consumer surplus means what? What a particular consumer is willing to sell and what he actually sells. So there is a difference between the two, and these two differences are generally plotted using what? Producer surplus as well as consumer surplus. Now moving on to production. So what is production? Production means producing a particular sort of commodity, right? See, there are various factors which are used for production. Land, labor, capital. Then you have entrepreneur. A good entrepreneur could create miracles, right? So the reward for land is, suppose I have a piece of land. I am renting my land. Okay, so I should receive what? I should receive rent, labor, wage, capital, interest, and entrepreneur. When I am doing a particular business in a very profitable manner, what will I earn? I earn profit, right? Okay. Now, production function, it can be classified into two. You have short-run production function and you have long-run production function. See, there is no ample definition for short run. Short run can be anything. Okay. Say, for example, I'm having a piece of land, and in this piece of land, I have been cultivating for 1 year. And now my production augmented or increased. Now I am able to get 2 acre of land. So at that time, there is a shift. And that shift represents, from that moment onwards, it is long run. Now you are having basically two theories associated with short run and long run. So short run theory is law of variable proportion. Long run theory is law of returns to scale. So what is law of variable proportion? See, when you do a particular task n number of time, a multiple number of time, what happens is you won't be interested to do that. You will be irritated because you are doing that particular task n number of times. So you feel distracted. You won't be interested, right? So that is law of variable proportion. So when you do a particular task many number of time, what happens is you won't get a satisfaction from that particular thing, and normally the satisfaction level declines. So in order to explain law of variable proportion, you should have basically what? Three particular concepts, and that is the inclusion of total product, marginal product, and average product. So how you are going to deal with all those things? What does TP? TP means total product. What does AP? Average product. What is MP? That is marginal product. Now we'll go for a tabular presentation, and computation will be asked from this area. I'll put question from this area. Okay, it's very damn sure. I'll just put question from this particular area. This problem itself. Okay. Now I'm going to compute TP, AP, and MP. So when I'm going for the computation of TP, AP, and MP, okay, I'm just going for its computation. Now here 8, this will be given 18, 30, 40, 45, 48, 49, 45, and 40. Okay, here you have 8, then 18, here again 49, then 45 and 50. So TP means what? TP means total product. Total product manufactured is regarded as TP. Now what is AP? AP means TP by output. Okay, this is called output. Let it be labor, let it be anything. Okay, so here AP means TP by Q. 8 by 1, 8. 18 by 2, 9. 30 by 3, 10. 40 by 4, 10. 45 by 5, 9. 48 by 6, 8. Then you have 7. Then you have 6.1. Then you have 5 and you have 4. Marginal product means addition to total product. So the initial one will be dash 18 minus 8. How much more units? See, when you employed 1 unit of a labor, you were able to produce 20 units of a commodity. When you again recruited 2 units of a commodity or 2 units of labor, you were able to produce 40 units of a commodity. So what is the addition? 20 more, right? And this 20 more is called as marginal product. Hope it is clear. 18 minus 8, 10. 30 minus 18, 12. Now you have 10. Now you have 5, 3, 1, 0, minus 4 and minus 5. So this is with respect to marginal product. Now we are going for its graphical presentation. Here you have quantity, or you can say that let it be Q itself, quantity, and whatever thing you are drawing, okay, that should be represented here. You have TP, you have AP, and you have MP. So based on this table, when you draw, see, listen that it is not compulsory that you should take numbers, you should mark your scale and draw. It is not compulsory. Okay, you Makle, can you hear me? Can you hear me? കേൾക്കാമോ? Audible ആണോ? Am I audible? Am I audible? Can you hear me? Makle, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Voice disturbance വരുന്നുണ്ടോ? കേൾക്കാമോ? Okay, there is some problem with my mic. Okay. Okay. So we will do one thing. നമുക്കൊരു ഇപ്പൊ കേൾക്കാമോ? Audible ആണോ നിങ്ങൾക്ക്? ഓക്കെ, കേൾക്കാമെന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. സി എന്തോ ഒരു എറർ സംഭവിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, ഐ ഡോണ്ട് നോ വാട്ട് വാസ് ദ പ്രോബ്ലം. I'll just we'll take a break and we'll just rejoin. Okay, so everybody do join by 10. Okay, 10 ആവുമ്പോൾ ഒന്ന് just join ചെയ്യാം. Okay, എന്തോ ഒരു എറർ ഉണ്ട്. Let me sort it out. Okay, so just rejoin by 10.